How do you quickly tell if a jar of pencils is worth a second look? Hello, everyone. If you read the title to this video, you will know that this video is going to be about pencils and random vintage pencils that one can find at flea markets, estate sales, and the like. So, spoiler alert, if you're not at all into pencils, this probably isn't going to be too interesting a video for you. But if you are into pencils, um, you may run into a problem that I have run into, and that is when you attend one of these sales, a flea market, an estate sale, a yard sale, and you see a big bundle of pencils, how can you quickly determine whether that bundle of pencils is likely going to contain something interesting enough for you to actually take out your wallet and bring that home? And there's a few ways you can quickly determine whether it's likely to contain interesting pencils. The first and most obvious way is if it's a see-through container such as this, you can see some of the pencils and determine whether it's of a age range that interests you. If you are like me, and I suspect most pencil collectors are this way, older pencils are more interesting than newer pencils, and rarer pencils are more interesting than commonly found mass-produced pencils that you find everywhere. So whether this bundle is just some high school student cleaned out their locker at the end of 4 years and threw all the pencils they had accumulated into a container and put them up for sale, not very interesting. Or this may be the contents of a collector, their drawer or their pencil collection, or just things they've accumulated over a lifetime, which is way more interesting. So look through the side if you can, see if any of them jump out at you. But really, you're going to have to open it up and take a closer look. There's a few things you can immediately look for. So the ferrule on a pencil, for those of you who don't know, for those of you who didn't heed my warning and you know or are interested zero in pencils but are still watching, the ferrule is the bit of metal that holds the eraser on a pencil that is so equipped. And most of these you can see do have erasers, so they will have a ferrule of some sort. Most modern pencils have rather bland, uninteresting ferrules like this Staedtler Norica. Silver chrome, kind of has some ridges or stripes, is crimped on, and they pencil manufacturers now stick with pretty much that formula. You can tell a modern pencil by that alone, while more old-fashioned pencils will have a wider variety of ferrules in different materials. A lot of them of a certain age will be brass rather than whatever cheap metal they're using now, aluminum or some such. The variety of ferrules that you see sticking out will tell you that this is a pencil collection of a certain age that may produce some interesting pencils. And not just the type of metal being used, but if you see ferrules that are not metal, if you see that's not an example that I was looking for, there, a paper ferrule or a plastic ferrule, that will tell you something about the age of the pencils. During the war years of the 40s, the availability of metal was restricted such that pencil manufacturers began to make ferrules of paper, or cardboard, or plastic as a way to affix an eraser without using valuable metal that was needed for the war effort. So if you find paper or plastic, especially paper ferrules on a pencil, well, that would tell you something about the presumed age of that pencil. So just right off the bat, that's an easy thing to determine. Also, you can see rubber tends to darken and harden and sometimes shrink over the years. So if the racers look um, like something from an archaeological dig, likely you're dealing with an older batch of pencils that may be more promising in terms of what you're interested in. That's some easily identifiable ways to determine the approximate age of a batch of pencils. Also, just things that stick out to you as odd that you may not have seen before in a pencil. That will tell you that there may be surprises lurking within. So there's a few simple ways to tell right off the bat if a bunch of pencils is worth a second look or just plopping down a few bucks and walking home with it, as I did with this batch. So let's go through this. I'll try not to make this video terribly long, but it's interesting enough to me that I will go through and I'll speed up through the boring sections and we'll just look at some of the prizes to be found in this jug of pencils. Just kind of pour out some, take a little bit at a time. So we've got some agricultural advertising pencils. It looks like a lot of them in this batch are advertising. Okay, so right off the bat, I have something that I find interesting. It's a number 3 pencil with a paper ferrule, so probably a war years, from the Southern Railway Company. I do have a growing collection of railroad pencils. Now, first things first, 6 minutes into this video, first things first, pencil collectors. I know the tendency is to collect only pristine, new, unsharpened pencils, but where's the character in that? A pencil was designed to be used, and just at first glance, a lot of the pencils in this particular collection seem to have been hand sharpened with a knife, which tells me something about the person that owned and used them. Probably someone in, feels like construction or even architecture or drafting. Someone working in the field, maybe. So, the agricultural pencils certainly reflect that. Someone from an agricultural area where he wouldn't necessarily be in an office with a pencil sharpener mounted nearby. So that tells me a little bit about the type of person these likely came from. There's a personalized pencil. Here's a pencil of a variety that I have never come across before. Pyramid is, I believe, the name of the manufacturer, the pencil company. Anniversary is the name of this particular model of pencil. Comes in a handsome blue. Ferrule looks pretty standard, but a maker that I've not come across yet. Here's an unknown manufacturer, unless Federal is the name of the manufacturer. Number 2.5 pencil. Well used. Here we have another railroad pencil. Missouri Pacific Lines, number 2 pencil. No ferrule, no eraser. Sharpened in a sharpener. Brown paint job. Print is coming off, but that's a keeper for me. Here we have a manufacturer for the military, or for aircraft, armaments and the like. Number 3 pencil, printed for a left-hander, Donald Douglas. Mark classified material properly, so encouraging those government contractors to make sure you're not giving away U.S. military secrets. Here we have an unusual one I don't see very often, from the Richard Best Pencil Company. no longer in existence. And this is a Trirex shape pencil. I don't know if you can see that. Trirex shape, patented. That shape of pencil was later purchased by the patent for that was purchased by J.R. Moon Company, and they're still making Trirex pencils even now in Tennessee in the distinctive shape. I have some nearby here. Sort of triangular or a oddly shaped hexagon that's very comfortable to use. This is the Richard Best Royal Scot in a, looks like a number 2 grade. That's interesting. Quill, some lumber pencils. Now this is interesting. This makes me think of war years or leading into the war years. Bundles for Britain. I'm assuming this is maybe from before the U.S. entered into the World War II, is my guess. The ferrule tells me it's of a certain age. It's not a recent manufacture. Bundles for Britain has something to do with sending aid, I'm assuming, to Britain at the early stages of the war. Eagle Murado with the earlier eagle emblem. So this is an early version of the Murado after it was changed to Murado from Mikado. Hollis Chambers Manufacturing Company. So more agricultural implement, unusual dark metal ferrule. Let's get another bunch out here. See what else we have. Funeral home, so you can always remember your visit to the funeral home. Here's another pencil I've not come across before. This will be the first in my collection of this type. Eagle Radiolite. You can see that. Number 2 pencil. Sharpened as some of the others by a knife. Blackfeet Indian pencil in a variety that I've not yet collected. I have several different varieties of Blackfeet Indian pencils. I talk about those in another video. Maybe I'll put a link to that. That's nice to have. Warner Electric Brake Manufacturing. Interesting mainly because of the unusual dark metal ferrule again. Sharpened with a long point sharpener. A lot of Lutherans in agricultural country. And yet another pencil I've not yet gathered for my collection, Cascade, American Pencil Company, New York. Number 2 pencil, 737 is the number there. Sometimes a pencil is interesting because of the size of the pencil. This very thin election advertising pencil. Vote Democratic, retain Marianne Sedlock, your circuit clerk. Very slender pencil. Lee Brothers Department Store, Mason City, Illinois. This one I think we've already looked at. Paper ferrule on this Pfister Hybrids, Gates Seed Company. So, agricultural pencil from the war years. Nothing that I can see on that. Okay, that's interesting. We have a round Ticonderoga. You don't come across those too often. And a number 3. This has an eraser on top. I'm a little afraid to remove this because it may be, well, I just did. So metal ferrule in the standard Ticonderoga colors. Have the lead fast insignia, which is their patented name for how the lead is affixed, the quote-unquote lead is affixed inside the... Boy, I'm having real trouble focusing on that today. It does say lead fast. A round Ticonderoga is pretty unusual to find. Advertising pencil for Office Away. The O'Hare Hilton. What's this? Looks like just a personalized pencil of some sort. I believe these are still being made, although this looks like an older variety. General's Test Scoring. 580, no eraser left. Designed for those Scantron type tests. Panama Beaver Bluebell pencil carbon paper. It's clean, it wears, it's pigment. I love it. I love everything about this. So we have a paper ferrule. Tells us the age of this, probably 1940s. Probably one of those toxic dye pencils that's used to make copies before the invention of the Xerox copier. So you'd write and then use a special sheet of paper that's wetted in some way, lay it on top and make a copy, file copy of whatever you're writing. When interests collide. Kirk's Typewriter Company. Typewriter and adding machine troubles. Dial MA1574 to erase your typewriter and adding machine troubles. To erase your troubles. So here we have an eraser pencil. So this bit of rubber or whatever they're using extends through instead of lead. And it also has an end that was used for dialing rotary telephones. You see that sometimes on older pencils, especially ones that are labeled for Ma Bell companies. So telephone related stuff. But a typewriter company, that's interesting to me. That's definitely a keeper. Another slender pencil, Lutherans Mutual Life Insurance Company. Advertising. Another agricultural pencil with paper ferrule. Atlanta, Illinois. Mountjoy Hoblet. Seed Company. Okay, I don't believe I have a Mohican pencil in my collection. Empire Pencil Company, Mohican. There's the Empire insignia, I believe. Number 2 pencil. This one, of course, caught my eye immediately. This is a Dixon Election pencil, made in USA. There's no tip on it. It's been broken off. But this string Obviously was designed to tether this pencil to the polling station, so you would use it to vote. And to keep you from stealing the pencil, they kept it tied there to the poll booth. So Dixon election pencil. I don't know when they stopped making these, but that is a neat example of this, with the string still wound around it like it came that way from the factory. That's a keeper. That's really interesting bit of history there. We have a nice example of a classic Mongol Eberhard Faber 482 number 2 pencil with its very distinctive ferrule. Whenever you see that, they kept that ferrule for years. You know, you're looking at a Mongol, very nice pencil. Classic American number 2 pencil. American College of Physicians advertising pencil. Here we have an abused typewriter eraser pencil. You can see that. Type Erase by Venus. This would have had a brush on the end. So you use the eraser on what you've typewritten on paper that was designed for that. Not all typewriter paper could be easily erased, but they made paper that was coated in something that made it easier to erase, and then you would brush away the crumbs and such like. The brush at the end that's now gone. This brings back to me the days of my youth when I collected a lot of Garfield books because I thought Garfield was the height of humor. That funny, funny fat cat likes lasagna. What's funnier than that? I might keep that just for the nostalgia. Sometimes a pencil is from it's advertising for a company you don't really care about, but the graphics are so interesting that it's worth keeping for that reason. Quality sales and service since 1893. Farmers Mutual Hail Insurance Company of Iowa. We've got some terrible weather event going on there on this pencil. Lightning and hail and rain all over this poor farmer's farm. It's leaving the house alone, but the fields are taking a beating. That's neat. Seem to be down to the last little bit here. Let's hope for some more interesting surprises. That's a pen that's sneaked in. This promises to be unusual if I can read anything on it. It looks like the finish on a Venus pencil, an earlier Venus pencil. They have that crackle paint, but I don't see any markings on it to tell me what it is exactly. Another slender pencil with a fun graphic. I'm on my way to Cozy Corner Cafe, lunches and family style meals, Arnold, Nebraska. Looks unused. Factory sharpen on this slim little pencil. Velvet all purpose. God bless you on your birthday. Another When Interests Collide for me, Speedy Radio and Electric Service, Lincoln, Illinois. Very nice old-fashioned ferrule there. Copper-plated caskets out of Columbus, Ohio. That's local. Thought all this was going to be Illinois or something. And the last one I guess we'll look at, Tupperware home parties. Little tiny pencil. Imagine the excitement this little guy has seen over the years, all those Tupperware parties. Use this maybe to fill out your Tupperware order. So there you go. Some interesting things there. Definitely some keepers. Crossover items like this typewriter, the election pencil, which I suddenly can't find. There it is. Definitely a keeper. Some other things with unusual ferrules. The railroad pencils, wherever they ended up, those will be keepers. Garfield, because he's just so darn funny. Some of these might end up being sold in a bundle. That one I might hang on to just because such good shape. That's neat. Anyway, um, interesting things you can find. If you wanted to take time, which I will spare you and not do that right now, you could go through and kind of form a people's history of some of these locations, like Lincoln, Illinois, or Atlanta, Illinois, or wherever else these pencils came from, just by looking at the store names, the age of the pencil. Um, Lee Brothers Department Store, Mason City, Illinois. There's a story to tell there just in this pencil. Probably doesn't exist anymore and hasn't for decades. Part of what I love about collecting pencils, it's kind of a history of an area depending on where you're picking up the pencil. So thanks for spending some time with me looking through this random bunch of pencils. Maybe you got some ideas about how to recognize what might be interesting to you in terms of pencils. If you're not interested in pencils and you still watched it to this point, well, God bless you. Thanks to all of you for watching. Hope to see you here again next time.